Mine was the last generation of Catholics that spent, 12 years in Catholic school, learning how what? First and foremost, how to love the old faith. Yeah, you know what? I remember the nuns that everybody likes to beat up on. I remember them well. I never saw one of them with a ruler unless she was drawing a straight line in class. I never got my knuckles rapped. I never saw nuns like that. I didn't even hear of nuns like that. So it's very popular to beat up on Catholic nuns. I remember them. I remember beautiful ladies in black habits showing whole generations of little kids how to love the church, how to reach beyond themselves, and to do something noble and something good. And it worked. Whole generations of young people learned to love the church. And maybe some of you are as old as me, remember that feeling of when you were a little kid, standing outside of a confessional box on a Saturday afternoon, your heart's racing, you're nervous, but you're eager to get in there and get the job done, right? And then the flood of relief and joy and gratitude and all of that emotion when the priest behind the screen in the little lit area there, the little room, the confessional behind the screen, he absolves you of your sins and he slides the little door closed and it's over. And you stand up and you can start again. That's what Holy Mother Church did for us when we were children. Priests lovingly leading us towards lives that would have meaning, that would matter, and that would get us someday, hopefully, to the reward of everlasting life. We were all sinners, we were all goofballs, we were all scrappers when we were kids. But we wore our scapulars as a badge of honor, not because somebody told us that we had to. We gave up meat on Friday because we wanted to, not because somebody said we had to. We heard Mass in Latin because every warrior that we'd read about, every crusader, every Catholic king, every saint, every martyr heard Mass that way, in Latin, for 1,000 years or more. And we wanted that. We envied their Catholic medal, the spittle, whatever it was, the stuff that made them Catholic, that set them apart. We knew who they were, and we wanted to be like them. It was part of our heritage to be like them. It's what Catholics did. It's why we were Catholics. We loved what they did, what they built over the bones of martyrs and from the wood of the cross. We loved the customs, the rituals, the glorious history of Christendom, the Lenten fasts, the feasting of Christmas and Easter, the unbroken marriages, the sacrifices, the family life, the great stories, the commitment, and the many payoffs of what it meant to be a Catholic. When I was a little kid, like 3rd or 4th grade, over at Holy Childhood School, waiting for my mother to pick me up after school. Now, she had 9 kids, so she had a full plate. And we lived a long way from church because this was after Vatican II and everything was a mess. And so they were commuting. We were commuting every morning, 15, 20 miles to go to school, grade school. So there I am, this little 3rd grader. Sometimes she'd get a little late. Oftentimes she was a little late. And I remember many times I'd start getting a little nervous. I'm kind of by myself, kind of scared. The sun's starting to set in the winter months or whatever. And what did I do? I did what every other Catholic kid would do back in those days. Mom wasn't there yet. You step into the church. Doors are unlocked, of course, back in those days. I was no saint. It was just the normal, natural thing to do. Just sit there and chat with the Lord. No more fear, maybe no formal prayers during those visits. Just sit there with him. You see what I mean? The church was literally our mother, and we knew what she sounded like. We knew what her candles smelled like. We knew what the pictures and the statues and the sanctuaries looked like. It was home. Soldiers died for her. Virile men became chaplains and went to war to bring her sacraments to soldiers on a battlefield. They made movies about her. Sinatra, Bing Crosby, the biggest names you can think of are playing priests back in those days because the Catholic Church was so powerful. There was never a waking moment when we weren't encountering the church. We had to go somewhere and have some silly person tell us we're going to now have an encounter. We always were encountering the church. Every time we took a breath, I grew up with 8 siblings because nobody was there telling my mother and father about responsible parenthood. So we had a house full of kids. And I'm, boy, oh boy, am I ever not talking about something that was special to my family. This is the way it was all around when I grew up. There were 11 of us in this house, so small that my father had to literally knock out a wall every few years just to make room for the next kid that God sent that came along. We didn't have any money. There were 11 of us crammed into a little house with one bathroom. Now imagine that. 7 sisters in this family, 7 girls, and 1 bathroom. The 2 boys were voted down every single Sunday morning especially. And my father and mother lived in a little tiny bedroom with a little double bed that barely fit. And they were happily married for 50 years. 5 of my sisters shared 1 bedroom when I was growing up. And we didn't really think of it as hard times. We were having too much fun. There were cats and dogs and fish and hamsters and chaos and nightly rosaries and baptism and forts in the yard and hordes of neighborhood kids running all over the place. We'd play outside all day long in the summer, all day long. No helmets, by the way, no helmets while we're riding our bicycles. Running in our neighborhoods, with dogs that were never, ever on leashes, by the way. With orders from Central Command, namely Mother, to be back in time for dinner, and that was about it. Nobody was worried about terrorists or rapists or weirdos or perverts. It didn't even enter anyone's minds. Nobody locked their doors. The car keys were always right where they belonged in the old Grand Squire station wagon, right in the ignition, night and day. That's the way it was for everyone before we progressed and grew up and became sophisticated. I remember that. The moms in our neighborhood, they were all pals. They have coffee in the morning. They stayed home with their broods. Oh my goodness, they didn't have their career. You didn't think they had a career? They had careers, all right. They were doing the real hard work at that time, raising civilized generations of young people who went out and made a difference. Yes, they had careers, but they also had picnics. They had May crownings, they had food drives, paper drives, holy hours, all-night vigils, going out and doing things for poor people, making food at the food shelter for the homeless people. And life for everybody else involved with these powerful women who were doing this back before they got feminized and liberated. Life was safe. Life was genuine. It was fun. Yeah, it was hard. Yeah, it was challenging, but it was wonderful all at the same time. And we more or less kept our heads. We didn't need a lot of shrinks. We didn't need a lot of medication, not a lot of suicide attempts. We didn't even hear of that back in those days. Everyone I knew came from a huge Catholic family where siblings and friends and cousins and neighborhood moms and dads took care of each other. We didn't need the state or the federal government bothering us about anything. When you think about it, that's what they did. They got rid of the family so everybody become susceptible to the nanny state. Well, we didn't need that. Didn't even think about government back in those days. We took care of our own. We kept kids safe, moral, healthy, and happy. There was no pornography. There was no school shootings. The occasional neighborhood bully was taken care of in the good old-fashioned way, if you know what I mean. Everyone knew which bathroom to use, by the way, which was nice back in the day. It never occurred to us that you might want to use another bathroom besides the one that you were supposed to use. But that's back when the world was sane, and so was the church. And by and large, you know what? Policemen led pretty darn boring lives back in those days. And in the evenings, everyone's mom would come to the door and shout, "Okay, Mary, Kathy, Joey, Mikey, Joni, Jilly, whoever, come on in. Time for the rosary." And that's how it was. The old pastor built that church, then he built the school, then he built a little credit union so that everyone could help everyone else in the parish build a little home eventually. He even built a fire department. And it wasn't uncommon to see old Monsignor Duran, cassock and all, riding shotgun on his little fire engine, running around town when one of the volunteer firemen hadn't heard the siren for some reason. You see what I'm saying here? This is the way it was when I was a kid. I'm not 100 years old. It wasn't that long ago. I think it can be brought back again if we would begin to appreciate what we've lost. Was it perfect? Of course it wasn't perfect. It was life. And nothing about life is perfect, not in this world. But it was a whole lot better than the insanity that we have going on right now. Now, we're not traditionalists today because we know better than everyone else. We're not traditionalists because we're holier than you are. We're traditionalists because we remember. I'm Michael Matt for the Remnant Underground. Keep and love the old faith, and we'll see you next week.